while at work. We said, don't worry, we will provide you with a modern daycare center for free. They said, we don't have any idea about sewing. We said, don't worry, we will provide you with the training, and during your training, you will receive your full salary. Just come and join us. Many of the women we hired now have been with us for 1 year. They have gained a sense of hope, a sense of optimism. Most importantly, they feel they are in control of their lives. The private sector cannot stand without support from the government. As I mentioned earlier, I am from the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, the peace oasis in Middle East. Despite the ongoing political unrest ruling the neighboring countries, Jordan is a safe destination for investment. Our king, His Majesty King Abdullah II himself, is supporting investment in the private sector. In Guterres Garments and Fashions Manufacturing Company, we will continue our mission to give more and more job opportunities to the Syrian refugees and help them and our country to find long-term solution to the crisis that can change their lives and their future. This is what we've done in Guterres. What will you do? Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Ariana, and for giving us concrete examples of some of those obstacles that we heard earlier from Maria about what happens when business tries to become involved in some of the sustainable development goals. There are going to be obstacles on the way. There are going to be roadblocks, but there's always a solution to every problem. We've had two perspectives and two commitments from business leaders. We're going to turn now to the other important element, the workers, the trade union, and we have Sharon Barrow, who's the General Secretary of the International Trade Union Confederation.
Thank you, and thank you for all those people who've made commitments today. We certainly need a more just world. The ITUC represents the world's workers, and peace, democracy and rights are in our DNA. We're committed to a world free of weapons of mass destruction, unmanned weapons of war, and to general disarmament. We stand alongside the many courageous human and labour rights defenders who risk their lives daily, and we reject a recourse to war to resolve conflict. Of course, we condemn terrorism, colonialism and militarism, as well as racism, xenophobia and sexism, too many dominant ideologies in the interests of those who would seek to profit from others. So stable futures requires the full exercise of human choice of technology and the centrality of human and labour rights with full employment and equitable economic and social development. We're in the middle of UN reforms, but we ask the UN leaders here not just to commit, of course, to a strong UN, but to remember that other institutions like the ILO have an independence of constitution, of a unique tripartite governance and programming and budget, and to create space for that in those reforms. It has a unique role with business and with unions in supporting the real actors in the global economy. Indeed, today's fractured world requires us to do what leaders like Paul Polman call for, creating new capitalism. It requires a commitment from all of us, and we pledge to advocate and negotiate with you a new social contract. The world can afford a minimum living wage, universal social protection. The right to bargain collectively is about shared prosperity and stable economies. So we need businesses everywhere to commit to a new social contract. And of course it involves the commitment to end tax evasion and the net zero economy with just transition that we need. But I would like to say to you that we need more than that. We need the rule of law. The UN Treaty on Business and Human Rights, with mandated requirement for due diligence, for grievance and for remedy, that's the basis on which we'll clean up the exploitative supply chains on which the world's profits are based today. They're our people. they deserve your humanity. And when we turn on each other, whether it's through xenophobia with refugees or migrants, or whether it's the way we treat our workers, and the stories you just heard from Jordan are part of that, then we actually debase ourselves. So the UN SDGs are, of course, a pathway for a world of social justice, a world where a zero-poverty, zero-carbon world is possible. But if we want to restore faith in democracy and create the enabling environment for peace and prosperity, then economic models must have people, decent work and environment at the centre of development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Much, Sharon, because without spelling it out, she actually gave us a little rundown of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which all come together in that phrase we've already heard about today, which is called decent work. And none of this that we're talking about is going to work unless there is those kind of conditions for people to work in that kind of a respectful environment which involves human rights, fair wages, and rule of law. 16, we've heard today, SDG 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions. Thank you very much for your remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, we're coming almost to the end of this, the 10th Private Sector Forum. And like any meals, the last little bits should be the sweetest. We've had a lot of sweetness and light already, but now to our last two speakers. Our very next speaker is a woman who's been nothing less than a force for change. She grew up in a country which was at war, became an activist in her society fighting for peace, and when she found, her and her colleagues found that the men trying to make peace were actually still making war, she came up with the best solution of all. The women locked all the men in a room. Now, we were thinking of that for today, but we thought, well, it's 2018. We don't have to lock the men in the room anymore, especially because there's so many women and because you men who have gathered here today are already part of the great and the good. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming Nobel laureate, SDG advocate, the head of the Lema Bawi Foundation, Lema Bawi herself. Please be nice to everyone today, Lema.
I'm always very nice, Lise. Thank you all so much for inviting me. There's a lot of pressure to end when fabulous speakers have already done their bit. A few years ago, I found myself in Libya immediately after all of the bombings. I was in a room with 100 young people. We were talking, having fun. And I made the mistake of asking them, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Everyone started laughing. I looked at myself to see maybe I had a wardrobe malfunction. And one of the bold young men stood up and said to me, Miss Lima, why don't you ask us where we see ourselves in the next 30 minutes? Because 5 years is too long. We don't see ourselves anywhere. We live by the minute, not even the hour. My heart was broken as an African, as a mother, but also as a global citizen. When wars are fought, billions. And I was looking at Libya and thinking of all of the bombings that took place. And imagine the price that people had to pay for those artilleries that they put in there, all of the military gadgets. But at that moment, no one was willing to invest in peace. And by investing in peace, it means investing in the people that were left on the ground. For all of these goals to succeed, for all of us to have a world free of poverty and peace and justice and everything we aspire for as we do our daily tasks, we must invest in people. That's the highest kind of investment that we can give. Because without that kind of investment, we will continue to see wars, we will continue to see hardship, and we will continue to see negativity run around our world. As a woman, as an African, and as someone who has been around, my life, this life, would be totally different if there had not been investment in me as a person by my community. It's important for each and every one of us to invest in people. Then the planet will come and peace will follow. My aunt told me once that wars are planned by the wise, fought by fools, and the investments of war divided by the ignorant. We can change that, because the people that are called fools in the midst of that are those young people who have no hope of a future 1 hour later. And until we give them that hope by investing in their lives, we will never really see peace, because we'll always have a vast majority of people that will be called fools. This world that we live in, this planet that we all find ourselves on, can only be what we want it to be if we continue to invest. And I know a lot have been said today. Growing up, we never really knew hunger, my sisters and I, because we live in a tiny community where people shared every bit. The government came up with a slogan, population growth is everyone's problem. And because we live in that community, we had never experienced hunger. So we never really knew what it was. So we used to mock our mother every time we sang the song. My father built his dream house. We moved out into the urban area. The first night we slept in that house, the next morning, 2 little children came to our doorstep with empty bowls. Aunties, we are hungry. My sister and I look at each other because we had never heard that word in the 18 years of her life, in the 17 years of my life. And she looked at me and said, wow, I guess population growth is everyone's problem. But I tell you, I guess investing in peace, investing in people, investing in the planet, especially the people, is everyone's problem. We live in a global village. When I sneeze in my community, someone in this New York is bound to catch cold. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Lima. Now you know why she won one of the greatest accolades the world has to offer for peacemakers, a Nobel Peace Prize. Ladies and gentlemen, all good things have to come to an end. And ironically, we are ending with someone perhaps we should have started with, because he has shown time and again that he has the power and the talent to hold your attention, your full attention, for 1 hour and a half, 1 hour and 50 minutes, 2 hours, even longer. In blockbuster films like Wall Street, Fatal Attraction, Falling Down, that sounds like a series. And now he is with us today for one of his greatest roles. And you, ladies and gentlemen, hold within your hands and with the attention that you give him, you can make this role